They made her translate enemy documents all night alone. Her work stopped an attack by morning. The clock on the wall read 3:17 a.m. when Sergeant Maria Thompson realized her hands were shaking. Not from cold. The small intelligence room was stifling, thick with the smell of old coffee and dry paper, but from what she had just read. Somewhere out there, in the dark hills beyond the base perimeter, an attack was being planned. And she was the only one who could translate the warning in time. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Maria had joined the army for reasons she rarely spoke about. A father who never came home from his own deployment. A promise she made at 14, standing at a folded flag ceremony, that she would never let another family feel that same hollow silence. She studied languages because words, she believed, could save lives just as surely as weapons could take them. Tonight, she would find out if that belief was true. The documents had arrived just after midnight. A courier, mud on his boots, eyes wide with urgency, dropping a stack of intercepted papers on her desk before vanishing back into the darkness. Enemy communications. Handwritten, hurried, coded in dialect that no machine translator could untangle. Her commanding officer had looked at her with a gravity she'd never forgotten. "Confirm all translations," he said. "Lives depend on it." She was alone in the room now. The rest of the base slept, or pretended to. Outside her window, floodlights washed over rows of canvas tents, and a lone flag hung limp against the night air. Somewhere a generator hummed. Every few minutes, footsteps passed in the hallway and faded again, leaving her with nothing but the papers, the pen, and the terrible weight of time. She began to read. Enemy movement along the eastern ridge. Supply routes shifting toward the valley. Fragments of a plan, scattered across a dozen pages like pieces of a puzzle someone had thrown into the wind. Her pen moved fast, then slow, then stopped completely as she stared at a single sentence circled twice by the enemy's own hand. A time, a location, a window of opportunity that would open at dawn. Her stomach turned to ice. She thought she understood the threat. She was wrong. The deeper she read, the clearer the picture became. This was not a skirmish being planned. It was a coordinated strike, timed for the exact hour when the base would be least prepared, when soldiers would be transitioning between shifts, distracted, vulnerable. If she was even slightly wrong in her translation, soldiers could walk directly into the line of fire. If she hesitated too long, the warning might arrive too late to matter at all. This was the moment that tested her more than any exam, any training exercise ever had. Somewhere in her mind, a quiet voice whispered doubt. What if she was wrong? What if she second-guessed a word, misread a phrase, and sent her commanders chasing a shadow while the real danger struck somewhere else entirely? The responsibility pressed down on her chest like a physical weight. This was not just paperwork. This was the difference between families getting a phone call that began with relief or one that began with grief. She thought of her father. She thought of the folded flag. And she picked up the pen again. Hour after hour, she cross-checked every line, comparing dialects, verifying phrases against patterns she had memorized years ago in a classroom half a world away. The coffee went cold beside her. The mug on her desk read focus, discipline, victory. Words she had once thought were just decoration, now feeling like a command carved into the wood itself. Outside, the sky remained black, indifferent to the silent battle being fought at her desk. By 5 a.m., the picture was complete. She wrote her final report in a hand that had finally stopped trembling, walked it down the corridor, and placed it in front of her commanding officer before he had even finished his first sip of coffee. He read it once, then again. His jaw tightened. He picked up the radio. What followed was a blur of motion, soldiers moving with practiced precision, vehicles rolling out into the pale gray light, coordinated like a single living organism responding to a single nervous system. Radios crackled with clipped, urgent voices. Boots struck the ground in rhythm, a tide of trained readiness surging toward the exact location Maria had circled in red ink hours before. The base that had been sleeping only minutes earlier was now fully awake, fully alert, moving as one. Dawn broke over the hills in streaks of gold and gray. And then, silence. The kind of silence that means something terrible did not happen. The attack, prepared in shadows and coded language, was intercepted before a single shot was fired. Soldiers who would never know her name owed her their morning. Maria stood by the window as the sun rose fully, watching the base return to its ordinary rhythms. Trucks idling, boots on gravel, the flag finally catching a breath of wind. No parade greeted her. No headline would ever carry her story. Just a quiet nod from her commanding officer, and the simple, aching relief of knowing she had gotten it right. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And somewhere in that small, coffee-stained room, in the space between one exhausted sergeant and a stack of enemy papers, an entire morning was saved by nothing more than patience, discipline, and a woman who refused to let silence win again. If this story moved you, tell us where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because every week, we bring you true stories of courage that never made the headlines, but changed everything anyway.